Greetings, nerds. This is Cena Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Paul. How are you doing tonight?
Doing very well, Sarah. I have to say, Sunfyre said, "Let the meat fire." Allison said, "Let me poison my son." I feel like this is a episode where I'm watching Fishes from the Bear. Ah,
How long have
ah.
you written all of that down?
Oh, I've been thinking about that all day. I mean, as soon as actually, even last night, I was just like, after I watched that episode, I felt like this is like the family reunion of, especially like with the fight there with poor, Sheepstealer getting scapegoated again. Poor Sheep. I saw like the best today, which someone did with Sheepstealer, and it was Kevin on stage. That's just where I saw it. He had reposted. Someone had made this, and he is like Sheepstealer, like talking about the fight and how Craxy's basically like jumped him, and then Crax and Sea Smoke just basically, he's like, I'll get him again. I'll get him again because I'm gonna bring that smoke next time. They sucker punched me this time, but I'm coming back.
Well, let's get into that scene alone, because that scene, I was initially, when they were attacking Rhaenyra's dragon, Syrah, I was like, whoa, buddy, slow down. No, I don't want another. Rhaenyra can't afford to lose another dragon here. But
Yeah,
then by the end of it, I was like, I don't like this. I don't like
mm,
watching what's happening right now. It was brutal to
it
watch
was.
them take down Sheepstealer, and heartbreaking, and I thought that was done very well, because I was feeling that way even before Rhea realized what was happening, and before she had that part of me is being killed right now, and there's nothing I
Mhm.
can do about it, and that heartbreak. But it's also very interesting, because I was not expecting that to occur at all. But it makes a lot of sense, because in this episode, you have Daemon off on some
Mhm.
errand, and we see him at the Vale, and we understand, as well as he does, that Rhea is not where she should be, and is going off to try to pay some penance by either killing Vagar or die trying. And meanwhile, Bela and Adam see that Sheepstealer has a new rider, and they report back. And then that leads to Rhaenyra being like, well, I'm going to do this myself because I can't trust no one.
Yeah.
And she arrives. But the funny thing is, until the dragons start to really fight each other, you don't realize there's so much size disadvantages. You may have a dragon, but some of you don't have the best dragon out there. But we saw that in last season also with her and
Yeah.
Sunfyre as well.
Yeah.
So, but I also love that it's all preemptive, more importantly, by part two of this conversation that started earlier this season between Daemon and his daughter. He admits he has spent far too much time neglecting, and
Yeah.
that this is really his fault at the
Mhm.
end of the day. And I can appreciate him even saying, I will help you.
Mhm.
And then him bringing up this idea again, the parallels between him and Aemond, they just keep coming because
Yeah.
he admits, he's like, I didn't have a dragon when I was young, and my
Yeah.
mother died when I was 3 years old, because you have to put in that reminder that Daemon has mommy issues.
Yep.
So again, all to parallel his nephew. But I really like the scene, even though, like I said before, my gut reaction while watching was, I don't like what's going on right now. This is a bit much. I don't know why. I really was like, I do not like watching these creatures fight each other like that.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. I had the same reaction too with whenever they were going down. And it's still, yeah, one, because Sheepstealer truly was just it's out there in the Vale, minding its own business, and of course, one of the things too that with this scene leading up to it was Daemon going to basically beg Lady Jane not to tell Rhaenyra about this, to get to your point about, again, this is his fault. and all of these things happening. So it was, yeah, but it was very disquieting for me seeing, even though I know these are C- CGI battle or whatever, but it was
Right.
just like, it's just anytime you have animals in peril, whether it's dogs or dragons, it's hard to watch that, and so and just how intense the fight was
Right.
with these creatures, and one of the things I think they really did a good job with this team was just giving you the scale again, to your point about Vhagar, Sunfyre, like last season and this season. With the standoff here, it's just the size of these creatures and the
Mhm.
power of these creatures, and even I couldn't help but think too, like some of the discussions that Ormond's had about with his whole thing about the target and is this bad magic or whatever, and even so all those things that sort of came together in this scene, and I thought it was very effective.
See, I keep thinking about how they've done such a good job this season of really, like, the show is called House of the Dragon. So we're focused on a family of dragon riders, and some have dragons and some don't. And that sense of belonging, once you find it, like Rhea explains earlier this season, like, I'm finally fulfilled, I'm complete. So in watching the dragons fight like that, it's almost as if their riders are fighting.
Yep.
So I think that's why when Syrinx was getting attacked so much at the beginning of the battle, my heart was breaking, because that's Rhaenyra. Like, part of her is
Mhm.
dying. And then on the flip side, like, to see someone cornered the way Sheepstealer slash Rhea was in that moment, you're just like, it's unfair, and you want to root for the underdog and or the
Yeah.
underdragon.
Yeah.
But it's they they got the emotion because of work that they've done, whether it's what you
Yeah.
brought up with Ormond's perspective, or just the perspective of the Targaryens themselves on their kinder with
Yeah.
these beasts.
Yeah.
But this also leads into a bigger another theme, because we never do one theme at a time. But another dynamic that has been at play for the past several episodes this season between White Worm and Daemon.
Mhm.
Because Mysaria has known from the very beginning that skull is not Sheepstealer Rider. She didn't know that it was Rhea and what Daemon was trying to protect, I should say. And that at the end of the day, he actually was doing a good and right thing, even though it was deceptive in nature.
Yeah.
And so through this understanding about, oh, their sheep stealer has a new rider, quote unquote new, and White Worms suddenly, like, again, renews her, or not renews, that's not the word, returns to her soapbox of,
Yeah.
Daemon is an awful person. I don't know why you're with him. I should be your consort instead.
Yeah. Yeah. They went there.
But it's
There's
also
Damon, yeah, that, and they have a kid. Yes.
but
Yeah.
they go there
Yeah.
after, more importantly, the conversation she has with her old, I don't know what we would call her, madame, or I don't know.
Oh, was that lady? Because I was that was Lady Fry, or was I couldn't tell. I couldn't remember if that was Lady Fry from the whenever they were in the throne room.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, the family basically. Yeah, I mean, basically, like your high moral was to see you as a whore. Once a whore, always a whore. Yeah.
Right, right. Once a whore, always a whore. But there was a better line even before that, in the sense that, like, what power do you have in truth? These people are not your own. Like,
Right.
this idea of, like, you don't realize how much you being in this position for so long and around these people and in these castles and houses, that has changed you. Because
Mhm.
for this season, we've seen White Worm sit at that council and continue to be like, no, 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 you guys don't understand. Take it from me. I'm a
Mhm.
commoner too.
Yeah.
This is what's going on. But
Yeah.
her own greed and ambition for power and status had, over time, like, as she receives whatever this is, like, that perspective also goes away, because we
Mhm.
also have seen her over the past several episodes, whether it be her finding out about Helena first, or this continued need to just kick Daemon out of the house.
Yeah. Yep.
For lack of a better word, like she is, and as she is very much playing the game as well, even though at the end of it, no matter how far, she will always be seen as the whore. And so that's why I like in that moment when she is initially starting as the white worm that we have seen this season and counts over, and then she suddenly, like, it's just like, well, at the end of the day, you just want sex from me. So you ain't getting it from Daemon, or you're not giving Daemon any. Like, if this is my role, then like, so be it. Like there's an interesting acceptance almost that occurs in that moment.
I think it was. I mean, there was this, there was the sexual tension, and that's been sort of a subtext throughout the season between the two of them,
Even last season.
and even last season. You're right, but I think there was also the power. I read there were several things going on there because I mean she's also had relations with Daemon as well.
Yep.
And it was a weird like love triangle, triangulation. I mean, there were just so many things when I was like watching that scene through my head as far as like, what are her motivations here? Yeah, I mean, there is of course, the attraction and just basically being the sex worker for the highborn. So there's that aspect of it. But then there is that power dynamic too, where was she feeling some level of equalness to Rhaenyra, or just or that or closeness beyond just being this vessel for sexual pleasure. So it was, there were a lot of things going on there whenever that all went down.
I don't believe the latter. I don't.
Yeah.
I think that in a way, as you brought up, like, it's a weird triangle, right? You've now been with both sides of the married couple, and we're not talking about a threesome. It's a very strange thing. However, like, Rhaenyra and Daemon's relationship is very strange. She is his niece, okay, by blood.
Sure.
So it's almost as though she's been around the Targaryens long enough where if I create my own little weird dynamic, and that kind of closeness allows for more pillow talk.
Yeah.
More secrets. Like, Mysaria recognizes her job of whisperers, but it can be on both sides where you can have people talking to you about what's going on in King's Landing, but now she's able to figure out, okay, what's going on with the Targaryen? Like, at the end of the day, what are their secrets? Because if you can get a hold of those secrets, then you can wield that to even get further in this game, this political game. And it can be used as a safety net. So I think, again, using sex to just get closer to these people, to get that secrets and to be vulnerable and allow them to lower their guards. So
yeah, I think that's a very good point. I mean, I think that's a very astute point that you made there, and I think that is part of it as far as her being the mistress of whispers and the Red Keep.
Let's talk about Aemond and King Daemon. Okay,
All right.
So there are 20,000 soldiers marching their way, and it's like they've known what I've wanted to see. They show Christian's head on a stick. I was just like, yeah.
And it's not even. It's just like I mean, I was like, they couldn't get him the mold, or maybe it's just I guess yeah. But also too that just real quick, I noticed they updated the tapestry at the beginning of the episode too to have Christian's story there. He did get his moment of glory. He's in the tapestry at the beginning of the show.
We also, and you were right, so Corlys just got captured at the end of last week's episode, and that is maybe one, but as we find out at the end of the episode, not the only piece that Aemond has on the chessboard that is being brought in over to his side. Now, Corlys is against his will. That's very, very clear in this exchange that they have as he is captive. And his question is just so good. What do you see in them and the Targaryen element? Why do you continue to align yourself with the brutish and the incurious?
Yeah.
I wish that it wasn't as poetic, and I really just wanted him to say, but this is so not Ormond, but just be like, you realize that they took everything from you. Your money is lost. Like they're no longer the strong ally here. But
Yeah.
what is that tie? And I think it was a smart writing decision to have Corlys not say anything
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to be like, I want to go back to my chamber. I'm done with this conversation because he knows all of this. He
Yeah.
had
Exactly.
that in with Rhaenyra
Yeah.
early on this season.
Yeah.
And yet he still, because at the end of the day, he still has granddaughters and now sons who
Yep.
are on that side.
It doesn't matter. I mean, to your point about the writing decision for Corlys not to say anything, I mean, that said everything.
Right.
It was, the look, to your point, we haven't mentioned facial acting in a while here on the pod, but Corlys, Steve Desane, who plays Corlys, like the facial acting there was just like, get my wife's name out of your mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. The moment he brought up the wife, I was like, Ormond,
Yeah.
you need to
Yeah.
you had it. You had
Yep.
him. You touched the button, and that wasn't the card to play, sir.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
even though Corlys was unfaithful, he's still we know how much love there was between those two.
Yeah, and
Um,
and even with all that, he's not going to betray them. But we were right about Corlys being captured, but we were wrong about the whisperers, and King's Landing, who was going to get the stories back to Ormond about what happened. But to your point, there was
well,
another piece of the chessboard.
wait, we were wrong.
Well, yeah, because remember, we thought that Ormond was going to try to, like, you had heard about. I took that scene of Corlys of Ormond not knowing about the conversation between Rick and Corlys, as far as like the bastards conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, but he did. But we do learn later that whenever he and Ulf were sitting
Yeah.
there having L's together, that word did get back about Daemon basically embarrassing
Yeah.
Ulf in Middletown, but in the commoners area of King's Landing. So there were, so we had the right faults, but it was just someone else instead of Corlys. We were, as far as the spies, getting word back to Ormond about what's going on there at King's Landing,
Okay.
and we. Yeah.
I admit to being wrong about things. So
But I am not afraid to say when I'm wrong, and I was
when
wrong.
Will says we, he means him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just want to go back to that. I feel like I was wrong about one thing, but not the other thing that you're trying to say. And so that's why I'm just
No,
like,
no, no, no! Don't even go there because you thought Corlys was dead. You did.
yeah, I know. And I said we were wrong.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
admitted that. I
I
am
didn't think he was wrong.
fully aware of when I was wrong. You've
Okay.
lost me in some of this thread. So to go back to the Ulf of
Yeah.
it all.
The Ulf
It
of it all.
didn't surprise me though. Like the
No.
whole exchange, it made complete sense
Yeah.
in terms of what we were seeing. And we knew that Ulf was not all in. He's been the cry. He's been pretty much given the Alicent treatment in King's
Mhm.
Landing. And with he keeps moaning about that. And then the incident between Daemon and him last week, and it makes all the sense in the world. And you kind of also, there was just him and his realization, like he'll never get a castle or a title.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they've been very clear. And in fact, this season, the writers have done a good job about making sure we understand the motivations for all of Rhaenyra's allies, because those motivations at one point were strong, and that's why they fled to her side. But over the course, ever since she has sat on that throne, there's been nothing but shakiness and shaky
Mhm.
ground between her and the
Yeah.
allies. So, and Ormond, knowing that there's a political game at play, he is using, and I mean, Aemond even says it in this episode. Those riders that Rhaenyra has are commoners.
Yeah.
So there's not as much. The loyalty of blood will always be stronger than just, and the irony is there's technically is blood there.
Mhm.
However, they were not raised as
Right.
nobles or
Right.
lords. So they're in it like it's very different.
Yeah.
So I like that scene and I like that moment, but what I like even more though was the scene between Wayne and his nephew because it just echoes
Mhm.
and this whole idea, like, you can tell in these moments how much of an impact Sir Christian had on Gwen.
Yeah.
We didn't really get a lot of him before this season. However, I do feel like his time there with alongside Sir Christian, like, really has changed him.
Yeah.
And just this lovely idea of the dreams some have of covering themselves in everlasting glory, of somehow transcending humanity's common fate, which can be applied to basically every single character. Because we see that whether it be wanting something or someone to tell her the gods did want this. Like she wants that confirmation and she
Yeah.
wants that righteous being appointed righteously or even Aemond or even Aegon. And then you have Allison who's like a mother who's just trying to protect at least one.
Yeah.
Like a mother who's been basically torn, cut up, put back together, Frankenstein, and is just like, I don't know anything anymore. She's like completely untethered in this moment.
Yeah.
But it's all about like how will they remember me at the end of the day. And I mean, if Gwen really wants a lesson from Sir Christian, if anything's gonna happen in Westeros, if there's any truth, it ain't gonna end the way you want it to.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I know they weren't featured too deeply in this episode as far as the screen time, but it was a pretty powerful conversation between Darren and also and Ormond and I mean, excuse me, Darren and Gawain about Ormond as
Yep.
well as far as the motivations of Ormond and and Gawain having and Darren in particular having realizations as far as like one of the things that stuck out to me with Darren was like I don't want he was like I'll be fine without the crown he yeah and so that so I really liked we got a real glimpse into Darren understanding what the plan is here between there with Ormond and how he was just trying to use him for his own to for his own end.
Yeah. No, and you're right. Like Darren, and we knew it. We already know that Darren was like, I don't like where this is going, but
Yeah.
there's a few things of why, and that's one, he's being forced into it by Ormond.
Mhm.
Two, he's grown up outside of King's Landing.
Yeah.
And he's been around someone, Ormond, who has basically probably been like, yeah, you go there and then this
Yeah.
happens. Like, if you're an intelligent kid, you're probably looking at the whole situation going on in King's Landing and being like, I am perfectly fine right here. I don't want
Yeah.
any of that. I don't need to eat. My brothers are killing each other. I don't
Yep.
want any part of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
He's
be
like,
over here.
I'm just gonna sit over here, just me, Tessera, and we're just gonna do our thing, and
But
we'll be
he also isn't willing to leave Tumbleton
mhm.
to ruin. He's not
Yeah.
willing, like, he may despise Ormond, and if it was just Ormond, he would have left Ormond ages ago. But it's
Yeah.
the other men who are there, who are sworn, quote, unquote, "loyalty" to him, that he's
Mhm.
just like, "I can't abandon them." And I think that's where Gwaine, as we've said before, given
Yeah.
his tutelage under Sir Christian, understands that now,
Yeah.
where I
Yes.
think he wouldn't have before
Yeah.
prior to his battle experience. But yeah, I think we get just enough of what's going on in Tumbleton each episode because we
Mhm.
know they're going to be heavily featured in the finale. So
Yeah.
yeah, Allison. Let's talk about the murder. The attempt. So a few things about this. It got my laugh out loud moment of the episode was Alice's reading of line delivery of idiot.
Yep.
Yeah.
He really is. Yeah.
But I also when she gives him the poison, they have this exchange, and he says before taking it, like, but I killed but I tried, but I killed my brother.
Yeah.
And I feel like in that moment, by him saying that, by him taking this moment of being like, she tells me you can't be trusted, but I also tried to kill my own brother. So I'm gonna take this poison, because I
Yeah.
feel like he knew what it was. And he's like, by me taking this, you can never hold, and if I recover and survive this, you can never hold the fact that I tried to kill Aegon over my head. Like, it was like, mother, I know you're mad at me, but you can't be mad at me anymore, because FYI, you're trying to kill me in this moment and I'm accepting it.
I don't know if I thought he knew that she was trying to poison him. I mean, it did cross my mind, but, with the drink, but Harrenhal does some strange things to people, but, hats off to Alicent to recognize the berries whenever she did
Mhm.
leave the castle. And I guess Helena, or somewhere maybe I think it was Helena that, like, when they were picking those things to know that that was, poison. But, yeah, I don't know if I read it that way. I think he's just, like as you were saying earlier, so we get these Daemon and Aemond have these parallel things happening to them, and so, in this Harrenhal moment, he was just, I don't know, he was his mommy issues or whatever were taking over there, and he was just, having this weird, like, "We're gonna have this big happy family here," "Mom's here, I have my, the woman who's gonna bear my kids and myself here to in this castle."
See, that would have been mine read if she had done it, like, before, when they were all eating dinner together, and then they get into an argument and she realizes. But if you because and I didn't have this read initially. I had to think
Okay.
about this, but it did stick out in my mind. Why did he say that? Why did they have the
Mhm.
character in that moment when this
Yeah,
is him and his mom?
yeah,
Aegon is, like, far off in the distance, like
yeah,
a memory far away. He brings up and acknowledges the fact that at the end of the day, he did try to murder Aegon
yeah.
to his
So,
mom. He acknowledges that.
yes.
So the very fact that they had him say that, that's why I started thinking
Mhm.
about it and thinking, like, I think that's a sign that he knew.
Yeah,
He also knows what Alice is capable of. So
yeah,
I
true.
think and the fact that they had the berries, like, she didn't wander outside of the castle. They were basically within the walls. She was just like, they weren't very far, okay,
No,
at the end of the
yeah,
day.
yeah,
So Alice has been there her entire life and knows exactly what's growing, and she probably planted the seeds of that. I
yeah,
think she has a cure right away, and that's also why she just said idiot, because she knows how to fix this. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
that is my interpretation, but they did get me well, they did, but they didn't, okay? And
Okay,
here's my case for it.
yeah,
The whole Allison arriving at Harrenhal, okay? Right when Allison appears, I think to myself, I literally had this thought. I was like, how the fuck did she not get by Alice? Like, are we gonna see that interaction? Because anytime up until this point, we have seen all sorts of people try to get into Harrenhal and immediately get confronted by Alice, right?
sure. Yep, yeah,
So the fact that they didn't show that stuck out in my mind. Then when they started kissing, I was like, "Whoa, this is Allison." I was like, "I don't know if you wanna do that before you stab him. I
yeah,
don't know what." And then it was kind of like, "Okay, I understand now. That is Alice."
yeah,
Got
yeah,
it.
they got me, yeah. Yeah, again, the parallels.
Right, right.
Yeah, since Damon had the vision last year, now we got this, and I was like, "Ah." Yeah, yeah, but that's a good flag there that usually Alice does catch the people trying to come into the hall, but she was otherwise occupied when Allison first arrived.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it was my honest to God first thought,
Mhm.
because we all know that I'm still on the side Helena should have went. I wanted to see Alice and Helena interact, but
Yeah.
No, Helena did not go to kill her own brother. Instead, we have Helena remaining captive, a very important person in this episode. The episode is kind of named after her in a way because the
Yeah.
episode's name is The Dragon in Winter.
Yep.
And we start and we end with a dream. I really kind of wish they would have legitimately ended with this whole dream sequence, but we start with a dream that Helena is having and she's woken up by Ren, and then they have a conversation about their father
Yeah.
because he will always be remembered. And it's a similar to, again, it's a lot of conversations that are had in these later episodes are returning to previous conversations because they are continuing to weave these themes and these ideas of perspective and what you want versus the reality of having it.
Yeah.
And in this exchange, it's about his perspectives that has also been previously discussed on dragons.
Yeah.
And it's kind of been like he didn't basically Helena says he, meaning Viserys, did not wish to be changed. And then Rhaenyra says, you believe the dragons alter us in some way.
Mhm.
And then Helena, who very much is serving in Allison's role right now.
Yeah.
Like you don't get a Rhaenyra Allison exchange in an episode, move in Helena.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because she says, you now have many dragons. Are
Mhm.
you yourself not altered? But
Yeah.
that also goes to what Allison has continued to try to explain to Rhaenyra is that just by sitting on that throne, you are changing and have changed. And
Yeah.
there's a denial, continued denial from that we finally really start to see expressed by her verbatim where she is like, no, I'm pretty much the same. It's a similar moment later when she's confronting Daemon about Rhea and is like, you tried to protect her from what? Like, what am I? Like,
Yeah.
you view me as this monster, and it's kind of like, well, Rhaenyra, did you see yourself grieving? You're still also not over it. Like,
Yeah.
so I don't know, but protect me from what? And then you also there's when she confronts the White Worm also towards the end of the episode, she says, I know what you've been doing, which I love.
Yeah.
Love the acknowledgement that Rhaenyra has known
How long?
that White Worm was basically trying to paint her in her image. Like, you're counseling me, but so that I can be more like you, not the other way around. Well, you're around people, they
Yeah.
naturally grow on you. But
Yeah.
it's just good. What did you think about Helena and Ren in this episode?
Yeah. I mean, the obviously there was some foreshadowing for sure, but I really, whenever I was just listening to talk about the conversation that Ren and Helena had, and just about the change, as far as, I mean, you nailed. I mean, I don't really have much more to say there because you really did nail it really well as far as like how we've seen over the course of this season how Rhaenyra getting is changing, and really she's coming to the place where she's like, well, maybe Daemon was right about how to rule because
Yeah.
we learned in this episode too, where she's like, the queen is not going to have any more petitions right now, and I think we really touch on the court too, that where the guy was like, he was like, you're setting me up to be the scapegoat here as far as the taxes and no money. So, I mean, all these things are like she is starting to like get more and more, I guess, more stronger stronger touch on her rule than she had originally had hoped.
Well,
So
it's
yeah,
kinda like a lot of what Miss Saris has said to do
mm,
has brought her no good.
yeah,
Like, she said Miss Saris is one who said, "You need to set up somebody as your fall guy for
right,
the lack of money," and that's what she did, and now
yep,
even that's not working, and she's even directed them towards the fall guy, and
mhm,
she's still hearing complaints. It's not like they suddenly found the money. Miss Sarah says, "Listen to the people." Well, we've seen her a few times, quote unquote, "listen to the people,"
yep,
and she can't handle it because it's all noise and it's all like,
yeah,
"Hey." I'm sorry you guys are poor right now, but I need to go get revenge for my sons, okay?
Yeah.
So take it to
Yeah,
the pill.
yeah, and the people are also, listen to the people, listen to this, and the people are feeling even more unsafe in King's Landing. So everything Mysaria has like tried to counsel Rhaenyra to do is not working. So now Rhaenyra's like, so the comment going back to to your question about Helena and yeah, so Rhaenyra is sort of like, and I love how they frame it with using it as the focal point for obvious reasons. She's realizing like, yeah, I got it. Tell me the answer. And Rhaenyra realizes that Helena does have that ability to see visions, and so she's just like, tell me, do the gods, am I going to prevail here?
Yeah.
And it does cuts to the future. I mean, with the horse, and you see the pale horse, and you can't help but think the religious imagery there, as far as the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and being a harbinger of death, especially when, whenever Helena's other dream is, the clear foreshadowing of winter is coming. So, like you said, I mean, the title pretty much tells us what's going to happen here. So, yeah, so you have those moments, and then the other imagery and dreams that Helena had, as far as seeing Dreamfire and mounting Dreamfire for maybe some future battle, and the childbirth. So you had that image as well, and clearly it was a male error because the soldiers took him away. So there was just so many things packed into Helena. The only thing that I wish, like you said, I wish we could have was just a scene with Helena and Alice.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the last scene is when it goes from the child being taken away to
Yeah,
Dreamfighter and
yeah,
her fighting against an army to
yeah,
a very calm, peaceful field that suddenly goes from, like, summer to winter in a matter
yeah,
of minutes.
yeah.
And I like how you said foreshadowing of winter is coming, and I'm like, yeah, that's long foreshadowing because that's like 200 years in the
200
future.
years, but Danny is a descendant of Rhaenyra, so, I mean, so there's
Yeah,
that.
yeah, but, like,
Yeah.
you're talking about foreshadowing 200 years future.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Oh,
in the
I know.
future. Yeah, I know you're cool, but they did it last season too with the Starks on the wall, so, I mean, they've been doing it
They'll
with Jace, so
always do it.
they always do it, yeah.
We wanna talk about Aegon. Aegon, what to say? He makes his stand, he gives his speech, his rally cry, and, we should have believed him earlier when he said that Sunfyre was still alive because Sunfyre
Yeah,
has risen,
yep.
and it was a beautiful moment for Aegon. I love Aegon. So, I mean, I don't love him, but he I'm sorry, he is mangled face has a very secret, like, special place in my heart.
I have to say, as the season has progressed, he has grown on me. I'm not quite ready to go, change shirts from Team Black to Team Green, but
No.
he has definitely grown on me, and I love the interplay there between the Three Stooges. You had Tylan at the end of the day being the real one. He's Master of Coin. I couldn't help but also think when Aegon was a little kid, he was the one when Aegon was like messing with Ty when they had with the little stone, and so there was that, and then of course he was the one that stood by him. Of course, Laris was Laris, and just say, "I'll make sure that we'll tell good stories about you and stuff." But it was a really really cool scene, I have to say.
Yeah, yeah. And, like, even like you said, even Lannister is
Mhm.
growing on me in this moment when he chooses to stay with Aegon. And I love Lars because Lars is like, "I'm out."
Yeah,
And then you're like, "Really, dude?" And then he gives his logic, and even Aegon accepts it. He's a
yeah,
cripple.
yeah,
Will do nothing, just like I'm gonna do nothing in this fight, but I get it. So,
yeah.
I just their understanding of each other is really beautiful, and Lars is gonna come back, and I'm very interested to see where these 3 go and navigate, especially now that they have a dragon on their side. And
Mm,
you know what? In my opinion, rooting for Aegon, you're not rooting for Team Green because Team Green
yeah,
tried to kill Aegon, okay?
true. Yeah, Team Aegon now. Yeah, so it's fully Team Aegon.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, that is it for us in House of the Dragon.